Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Automated Advantage. Today we have Alistair on. Alistair, why don't you just give us a quick introduction, tell us about yourself and your company?
Yeah, hi there, Greg, and good to be on the podcast. My name's Alistair Fawcett. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for a principally UK-based managed services provider, albeit we've got teams across the elements of the globe. The company's called Oryx Align, and yeah, I'm the Chief Operating Officer, so that's my role. Good to be with you.
Excellent. And I was looking at your when we were doing the homework and stuff. And is there any relation to Oryx being the buck in South Africa? If it is, it was one of my favorites.
It is actually. So the founder of the company is from the continent, from Namibia. So yeah, that's why he went down the route of um, choosing an oryx,
Yes.
and I think his view was that there's an alignment of its horns, and equally, it describes alignment in terms of IT services into business. So, other than it being a difficult name to pronounce and for people to spell, I think there was probably method in his madness when he selected it, and it's stuck with us ever since.
Well, there you go. I've seen them in the wild, in alive, and they're beautiful animals. So.
Wow.
Um, so talk a little bit about, yeah, how long have you been there? How long's the company been in operation? And knowing that people have lots of different options, like what do you guys do differently that if you said to a customer, here's our differentiating factor?
Yeah, so the company was founded in 2006. And Sonny Carl, the business owner, Justin, who joined quite quickly after Carl established the business, still talk about the days when it was run on a kitchen table and then moved into an office that was set up in the garden of the house that they occupied at the time. We now have our headquarters in London, just up from the Bank of England, and going from strength to strength. I joined the company in March 2020, which you'll remember is not far off the month, near enough to the day that the UK went into its first lockdown. So it was a strange transition. I actually moved from serving in the UK Armed Forces. I closed down my Ministry of Defence laptop, opened up my Oryx Align laptop, and went straight into a remote board meeting. So I've been with the company for, well, yeah, 6 years. So I often say to people, I'm probably part of the problem now, not part of the solution, which is what I think generally people think when they arrive somewhere. And I was really brought in to want to establish the role of Chief Operating Officer and to support the business grow, and to deliver the levels of corporate maturity that we require to transition as a business into taking on larger clients, moving into the mid-market space, focusing on particular sectors that come with their own unique requirements, which is how we operate. And I've really seen the business, grow across a number of axes, and probably double in terms of size, in terms of headcount, in terms of revenue, hopefully in terms of profit, in terms of the types of services that we deliver, and how we're constructed as an organization, in terms of business units and teams, where we operate from. We've just set up a big team in Cape Town, for example. So, clearly from a chief operating officer's perspective, that tends to all fall under my bailiwick. It's certainly been a ride.
Well, you definitely need to visit that office on a regular basis. That is a spectacular
I
part
go
of
next
all
week. I go next
of
week.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite cities in the world. It's incredible. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's scary to think, like you said. I mean, didn't even think about the date and everything. Like it is literally 6 years ago that craziness happened. I remember I was about to take a flight to Dallas, and everybody said, I was working for IBM at the time, and I get the nobody's allowed to travel anymore until further notice. And did that further notice take a lot of time?
Yeah, I
Ah,
certainly London was very eerie over that time frame. I remember leaving the UK's military defence, which is on Whitehall, late one evening after we'd completed a call with our sort of Five Eyes partners. Feels like a lifetime ago, and walking out into Whitehall, literally as that night the UK was going into lockdown, and it was eerily quiet. We couldn't even go for a final beer in our favourite pub. It was on the tube and up into a board meeting for Oryx Align. So yeah, strange times.
it was crazy. I was watching a TV show the other day, and the people had masks on. I was like, like it's almost I
Yeah,
blocked that out of my mind that it existed, but it seriously wasn't even that long ago.
yeah, for sure.
So so you talked about growing into or getting into small SMB markets and things like that. From that perspective, are you guys seeing that you need to come in with a different approach, a different angle? Maybe you're talking to different people. What's the like maybe the difference between going after the larger enterprises and small medium? What's the experience there?
Yeah, so just in terms of the services that we kind of categorize what we support our clients with, it's around managed cybersecurity, it's around cloud transformation and data analytics, it's around delivering critical enterprise networks, both in terms of design, execution or deployment, and then support. And then probably what are considered to be more traditional 24/7 managed IT services. Um, and depending how clients draw down on those services, one depends how we interface and support them and the type of support that they require. And that's probably a prima facie case to start with. Equally, we've got clients that have been with us from near enough day one. And as we have grown, funnily enough, they have grown. And it's a symbiotic relationship and there's a strong partnership there. We try to operate in a partnership with our clients as opposed to it being a highly transactional model. And, for those that know, working on a service desk as an on engineer in a highly transactional environment with end users that aren't phoning up the service desk to chit chat and have a good time. They're phoning up because they've got an IT issue that they've probably had to endure on a number of occasions before they pick up the phone, because that's generally what the statistics indicate. So we have had clients that have grown with us. Equally, as we begin to attract and pick up larger clients, the and we base our service model, our operating model, really on having a close, intimate relationship with the client. So we understand them, we understand how they operate as a business. Clearly, the services that they draw down from Oryx Align, but equally the other critical services that make that business function. We also in that business model, and we put all employees through service excellence training. And it doesn't matter which bit of the ship you sit in. If you're on the first line, if you're a service delivery manager, if you're in the finance team, it is about delivering as high a quality of service as you can to your colleagues internally, but also how we face those services off into our clients and delivering high levels of operational efficiency, be that through process, be that through automation, be that through artificial intelligence, be that through platform changes, be that through our daily, weekly, and monthly battle rhythm, our operating cycle. I think we find as the size of the client goes up, some of those stresses and strains are still the same. Higher degrees of discipline and due diligence anticipated and expected around how those services are, one, contracted, and two, onboarded, and three, supported as we move forward. We also find the larger clients generally have their own internal IT team of some description, and therefore we're facing into a team that is a intelligent end user in that sense, which works in terms of partnership, as opposed to some of the clients that are clearly outsourcing the service They want as little to do with IT services as possible. That is not their sweet spot, and they rely on us wholly for everything from building and supporting budgets through to being able to explain down to the nth degree if there's a challenge in their environment, or if there is an additional service or product that they might want to take on because it will benefit them, particularly from a cybersecurity perspective. At the moment, though, we've got a range of clients from a traditional managed support perspective, everything from charities through to recruitment agencies, through to, a whole range of clients. We also have a number of data center clients, and we support their critical network. And for some of those clients, we also support their corporate networks as well. And we tend to view our sectors based on, are they what we'd consider to be a more traditional managed services client, or are they a data center client, or we also look after a number of the large properties through the UK, which again operate based on having critical networks in place. So there's a transferable skill set between what we do to support a data center, equally what we do to support a building. And if we're in at the right time to build that network, to design and build it, take it into service and support it. So how we configure the team is based on that a smorgasbord of support requirements.
Yeah, and I'm very familiar with the industry, having stepped out of a pretty similar type of company and stuff like that. So the question gets to then, you talked about growth, and right now, what's your mechanism for acquiring new customers? And then if I want to say this, in a very noisy market with people suggesting they can do things similar to yours, what's your winning strategy, or your differentiator that you're telling people, look, come with us because fill in the blank?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I will state at the outset that I am not a marketeer. Unfortunately, I don't get too heavily involved in business development. We pick up the majority of our business through referral. We get some clients direct through our website, and clearly we're using a range of marketing tools to generate business development opportunities. I suspect we don't spend as much as some of our competition may spend in terms of marketing. And equally, we are generating new business through referrals. So that tends to be the route that we find that we're picking up opportunities. Price will always be important. And I do smile when I sit with the CEO every now and then around we position ourselves as a MSP that is delivering high quality services. We don't believe the market should be based on racing to the bottom and therefore underselling, potentially overpromising, and then not meeting the requirement. But we have to price accordingly in quite a competitive market, of course. Equally, we stress the importance of having a proper partnership. We also stress the importance of our ability to support on a 24/7 perspective, regardless of whether a client is with us 24/7 as a paid client, or we are effectively offering services outside of their normal hours. So we find really there's a mixture of levers that we pull to be competitive. Certainly for the data center construction, we don't build data centers. We're simply, you want to say simply, it's not simple, but we go into design and implement the network that a data center will operate on. We've built a right to win in that sector, and we find that that's where referral works. Equally, we're very giving with our time when we are on site during the construction phase with the other contractors that are also on site that are hanging off that network. so that we can, deliver a really high class product and project that ideally we take into service. So there is a quid pro quo. You reap the seeds that you sow, as it were. And we find that that also builds our credentials in that particular sector in itself, and likewise in the property space.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, I think the race to the bottom, the price sensitivity, we've all lived that, and it's that age-old adage of you get what you pay for, and the hourly rate or whatever the driving mechanism is. Generally not what you should be focused on when you're looking at the outcome and the value. And I think to your point, as far as critical systems being up and available 24/7, you'll find that out really quickly when you go for the low cost option.
Yeah, and a wise person once said to me, I don't think anyone ever phones up an IT provider and thanks them for their service, do they? They only ever phone up to when something's gone wrong. We work with clients senior level within the client base who simply want to be able to turn on the tap and IT services come out. And I absolutely get that. But you'll be wholly familiar with the complicated nature now of IT environments, particularly where there are high levels of integration, high levels of automation being built in. Everybody is looking for an advantage themselves within the IT environment that they operate, and we support on their behalf. I suppose be careful what you wish for. I think I would want all of our clients to view our service as a capability, not as an overhead. But I suspect some of them see it as an overhead at times. But we work hard to make sure that we're competitive, that we're value for money, I suppose, is probably the nomenclature that we would put to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So you've mentioned a couple of times in your opening statement, and then recently about, let's call it automation. Let's talk about the topic of the second with AI. So maybe just talk us through your like internally what it is you may be doing to quote unquote embrace AI, how your services might have changed, and then maybe towards the end is what are you seeing from your customers? I get the sense, and I see this a lot. It's like, hey, we need to implement AI. And it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Well, no, we just need to implement AI. There's no strategy, there's no plan, there's no thought around it. What's been your experience?
Yeah, and given my background, I'm a big believer in establishing a proper strategic view around delivering game-changing capabilities internally in Oryx Align, and I'd certainly advise clients and people enjoying the podcast to take that particular approach. And for me, it's about balancing the ends, ways, and means, which are the component parts of a good strategy. Internally in Oryx Align, we've taken a very deliberate approach around how we will introduce automation and equally how we will move to a more AI-enabled business. And that just because we could do something, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should. It has to be backed off against a business case, a strategic position where we wish to get to as a business, and equally our ability to adopt and benefit from automation and, in particular, AI. There's also and it feels like an overbearing pressure on any business to adopt automation and to adopt AI to deliver the bacon, to make the business more efficient, make it more cost effective, hopefully to increase margin, but also to make us competitive in terms of how we price our services into our clients. And I think that creates a heady mix of external pressures and internal pressures to move forward with automation with a small a. I think to a degree there's AI being used out there with a small a as well, as opposed to taking it at the business level and adopting it top down versus bottom up. We held an internal workshop many moons ago to look at case studies across the business to say, how will we adopt it? How will we benefit from it? And almost, if we're talking about AI automation, that we're probably talking about from a same concept perspective in terms of the return of investment to the business itself. And there were some pretty interesting stats at the time when we were building some of the slideware and the material around the strategy workshop. IT did a study, and it's probably 2023, but maybe 2024, and it was a pretty stark figure that 95% of AI projects don't deliver the return on investment that had been determined at the outset. Now, that might be because we are gilding too far what AI can do for a business, and I know things have moved on, or it might be the internal project controls and management and transformation that any business uses to realize, in this case, delivering a digital transformation. It was also pretty stark, and I looked recently ahead of coming into this session. I think if you look across any given business, probably 40% of employees are using AI, but they're doing it through their own license, or they're doing it through a free access to one of the larger language models. So whilst that external, internal pressure is still there, you still have to do it in a way that you are prepared and integrated to deliver the right effect once that piece of digital transformation has been delivered, including all of the contributing parts from a line of development perspective. So processes, information, operating models, resourcing, skill sets that you need to adopt, again, in this case, automation projects or AI projects. And we've taken that view internally from a Oryx Align perspective, and we will deliver AI betterment at a business level. And we will also delegate down to business units to adopt AI relative to their particular requirement within the business. Equally, we want to make sure that we've got a sensible internal policy around how we expect AI to be adopted and utilized. And we can see the odd spike here and there, but most of our teams are using it on a daily basis, and we find that it is delivering the right effect. But that is almost a bottom-up approach at the moment, as opposed to where we will be as a business next year, which is predicated on absolutely being ready to adopt AI tools, making sure that our data is what it needs to be, that it is configured in a way that allows us to be more AI enabled. And through the predominant line of business application that we use, we will buy into increasing levels of AI enablement based on the line of business applications that we use. So I suppose we're taking a multifaceted route. We've also looked across what's a pretty standard maturity model to say, right, realistically, where are we? And we're punching well above our weight in some areas, but there's additional work we need to do in other areas. And equally, what is right for the business to aspire to in terms of maturity, and what the cost is to get us there, what the return on investment is, and that the juice has to be worth the squeeze. And my advice would be that businesses need to look at it at a holistic level, as opposed to, you can hear it quite glibly, not necessarily with our clients, but more broad. We just need to be AI'd, or we just need to be adopting AI. Well, to what end? How? What's it going to deliver in terms of effect? How are you going to manage it? How are you going to pay for it? Is it going to deliver the return on investment that you aspire to? But ultimately, no organization wants to be irrelevant. And if you're irrelevant as a commercial organization, you quickly go out of business. And therefore, again, that external and internal pressure to see AI adopted, I absolutely get, including automation. And if I look at how a managed service operates, a managed service provider operates, there is so much in terms of opportunity where we can look to automate to deliver a better service, to reduce overhead, to be quicker, to be more consistent in terms of inputs and outputs. And ultimately, that's what we aspire to as a business.
Yeah, no, you made a lot of amazing comments there, and a couple of things is I had a client that was a large bank, and they basically said if you don't use AI, your bonus will be affected. And people said, well, how do you want us to use it? And they were like, if you don't use AI, your bonus will be affected. It was like there was no strategy, no approach, and so that was one. And then the other thing is, I'm talking to a lot of people, and it's relevant in your business too. It's like, look, you can implement AI, but if somebody's using it in their own license and stuff, you're exposing company IP, you're exposing company data, and without even knowing it, that it's kind of going in and looking at that. And then the last one is there's I think it's a funny TV commercial here in the US for, I think it's IBM, that says, so there's two people are walking together, and the lady goes, yeah, we've implemented AI. The guy goes, yeah, so our sales team is going to be more efficient. And they were like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. And, so we're going to get invoicing out faster. And they were like, that's how it's supposed to be. And then they kind of take, like, let's talk about practical ways of doing it. And I think that's probably a very, very true statement.
And I think there's kind of a couple of points there that I'd probably kind of pull down on. We deliberately share best practice across the business. We've got one business unit, just due to its personality, is the sort of the guys that are pushing it forward from a business unit perspective, that allows us then to exploit that more readily across the business. And I don't think it necessarily matters at what level you operate within a business. You kind of don't know what you don't know. We're incredibly busy every day, therefore sharing those best practices. And when we went through the strategy workshop that we did around AI and automation, it's looking for use cases in every bit of the business to demonstrate how even with low levels of investment, we can start, and we have been for some time, benefiting from being able to use AI to deliver real effect. Being candidly, we still probably struggle to look at how we qualify that as an efficiency factor ratio. Likewise, in terms on return of investment, but we're building that understanding as we go. I think the point also that you made around rules of engagement and how employees, what they should and shouldn't be doing with our data, and certainly with client data, and therefore again against low levels of investment, how we fit the business to use AI. We've looked strategically across the organogram to say, right, who are the people, who are the teams where we can make big gains quite quickly, that allows us then at the business level to adopt a more deliberate approach. Particularly, we're a ConnectWise partner, and we will go down the ConnectWise ASIO route, and there's a level of preparedness and readiness that we need to do to adopt those services. But we understand what that looks like. We've got a vision that's been broken down into a good strategy, and we're building out the program and the project controls to deliver that, whilst we can currently at a low level continue to exploit AI. So we certainly found documenting an easily digestible policy that's understood across the business, certainly at the right level, will help us be straight and narrow in terms of our rules of engagement. But even prior to that point, until in terms of how we husband our husbandry, how we manage our data, the controls that we put around our data. Clearly we're certified from a ISO 27001 perspective, but the controls that we put around our information, they were in place, I mean, a long time before we got to this point. But it's those controls that also allow us to be more comfortable how we move forward with automations and certainly with AI.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely, you sounds like you guys are taking a massively practical and not to sound bad, but a slow, like strategic approach to it. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So as we run up against time now, I appreciate the time. So maybe just tell everybody again the name of the company, website, how to find you guys, any kind of push that you have.
Yeah, so Greg, it's Oryx Align. That's I'll spell it. That's ORYXALING and .com to find us on the website. Yeah, so that's the company. We have a big team in London. We've got a big team in Manchester. We've got a knock across in Manila, and we're growing a big team in Cape Town. We've got an office of about 50 desks across in Cape Town. So we'll continue to supplement our onshore team with our offshore teams to deliver the right effect for our clients as we move forward.
Yeah, you definitely got the time zones covered. Again, I really appreciate the time. I thought it was a very enlightening conversation, and thank you so much for taking time to be with me today.
No, an absolute pleasure, Greg. Absolute pleasure.